Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be my mid-year reading wrap-up for 2026. If you're interested in hearing about some of my favorite books that I read in the first half of the year, please stick around. As I said in my introduction, today's video is going to be all about the books that I read in the first half of 2026. I have been doing these reading recaps for the last few years. I really enjoy doing them. I think they're a lot of fun, and I'm going to be using the same prompts that I've always used. I will say though, in years past, I've definitely tried to have a lot of variety in my answers to the prompts. I've tried to not repeat any books, and I opted to not do that this year. So there's definitely a bunch of repeating on here, and I'm sorry for that, but it's just what worked for 2026. Before we dive into the prompts, I wanted to go through a couple of book stats for the first 6 months of 2026, starting with how many books I've read so far this year, which is 41. I've definitely been going for quality, not quantity this year, and I'm really happy that I have been. I have DNF'd 6 books so far this year, so I've attempted to read 47. I've fully read 41. 6 were DNFs. And when it comes to number of pages I've read so far this year, it is 16,827. My average rating is actually something I'm really proud of. Again, I've gone for quality, not quantity, and it shows in my average rating, which so far is 4.2. I'd love to keep it over 4 stars for the entire year. When it comes to ARCs and ALCs, I have read or listened to 11 so far this year. And then when it comes to books off of my physical TBR, I have read or attempted to read 42. And now it is time to dive into the prompts for my mid-year reading recap, starting with a great one, which is the best book I've read so far this year, and that was an easy answer. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This is my first book from this author. I don't want it to be my last book from this author. Words cannot describe how much I love this book. I think this book is absolutely incredible. I laughed, I cried, I was incredibly invested in these characters, in their relationship, in the overall plot of the story. And as an added bonus, I absolutely loved the science in here. I did study biology when I was in college, and having this book be embedded in biological science was actually really fun, and being able to understand the science was really exciting, and I think made this even more enjoyable for me. This was a 5 out of 5 star read, a 10 out of 5 star read, and if you have not read it, I highly recommend doing so. Our next prompt is the best sequel I've read so far this year, and this was also an easy one. That is Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman. This is the second book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I started this series in March, and as of filming this video, the last day of June, I have read all but the most recent release, and I've fallen in love with this series. And this book, the second book, was actually my first 5-star read of the series, which to me was pretty incredible because I very often find that the second book in a series is a bit of a letdown for me. This was not. This was so good. The development of our world, our characters, our overarching story, the history that we get, it was just all done so well in this book. It made me even more invested in continuing on with this series. And if you have not explored Dungeon Crawler Carl yet, I highly recommend doing so. I'm so glad that it's blown up. I'm so glad it was put on my radar. Going along with my last book, we have the next prompt, which is a new release that I have not read yet, and that is A Parade of Horribles by Matt Dinniman. This is the most recent recent release in the Dungeon Crawler Crawl series. This is book 8. It came out in May. I read book 7 in June. I loved it. I'm really excited to read the next book to continue on with this story. I'm also sad that once I finish this book, I'm going to be caught up and I won't have another to read. I'm definitely going to be reading this book in 2026 and cannot wait to do so. The next prompt is my most anticipated new release for the second half of 2026, and I knew immediately when I wanted to choose for this. That is Dreamland by Olivia Blake, which releases on August 11th, 2026. Olivia Blake has become one of, if not my favorite author. I absolutely love her stories. She came out with a graphic novel earlier this year, but I am so excited for another release from her. I'm so excited for a full-length novel from her, and I intend on picking this up and reading this as soon as I can. Our next prompt is my biggest disappointment so far in 2026, and I had to go with How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates by Shaylee Thompson. I was provided with this arc by Gallery Books, and I'm very grateful that they sent this to me, but I have to say that unfortunately this book ended up not living up to what I was hoping it was going to be based on the title and based on the first quarter to third of this book. This to me seemed like such an interesting read. We have a melding of genres going on that I thought was really, really fun. This book is a romance, but we have a main character that absolutely loves horror, and horror elements are discussed and included throughout this story. I thought that this book had a really great start. I thought it introduced the story really well. I thought the idea, the concept, and the plot were super intriguing and enjoyable. But unfortunately, after the halfway mark, especially in the last third of the book, the story just kind of fell apart to me. And I ended up, I think, rating this a 3 out of 5 because I did like it. It just ended up not being what I thought it was going to be. So this was a disappointment, but also not a bad book. Our next prompt for this mid-year reading wrap-up is my biggest surprise of 2026. I could not pick just one book for this prompt. Immediately when I thought of it, I thought of these 3 books. We're going to start out with the first one, which is Welcome to the Hunam Dong Bookshop by Huang Bo Room. This is a literary fiction. It is very slice of life. It is very much character and not plot. It is sweet. It is melancholic, but has a bit of an optimistic air to it. And I love that combination of all of those things. This was the second book that I read in 2026, and I still think about it. I still think about it pretty regularly, and I love that. And if you have not read this, I highly recommend it. This was a 4.5 out of 5 star read for me. The next one is also literary fiction. Again, they all share a genre, and that is The Bright Years by Sarah DeMoff. I really, really enjoyed this. I heard fantastic things about this before I picked it up. I was not disappointed. This book is pretty devastating. It's emotional. It made me emotional. I cried several times throughout, but it was also very real and honest and true. And I really, really loved DeMoff's writing and the way that she presented these characters and the life that she gave them. And I cannot wait to read her next book, given how much I liked this. This was also a 4.5 out of 5 star read for me. And lastly, we have one that I actually read in the month of June, so it's definitely fresh on my mind, and that is The Names by Florence Knapp. This is literary fiction. It's told in a few different timelines, which I thought was really interesting. That aspect of the book is a big part of the plot, and so I don't want to detail it too much here, but I will say that this story brings up a really interesting idea in terms of what a name means and what a name can do in terms of its influence on a person's life. And I really appreciated that. It's something that I don't think I've personally read explored in a book before, and I loved our characters. There was a lot of sadness in this book, a lot of things in this book that I felt very, very emotional about. I cried many times. I cried pretty hysterically reading this. If this is her first one, she hit it out of the park right out the gate, and I cannot wait for her next release. Our next prompt is favorite new to me author, and I feel very good about the one that I ended up choosing, and that is Matt Dinniman. He is, of course, the author of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I've now read 7 of his books. All of them are part of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I definitely want to read his other books. Words cannot express how I feel about this man's writing. Like, he just makes you fall in love with characters. He develops characters so well. He makes you care about people that you barely know about because their characterization is just expertly done. And beyond that, he has a way of making incredibly complex world building and plot development seem easily digestible and easy to understand, which I think is a feat. I cannot recommend Matt Dinniman enough. He's definitely my favorite new to me author this year. Next, we have newest fictional crush, and I had to pick 2 for this one. I couldn't just go with one. So we're first going to talk about Ryland Grace from Project Hail Mary. I just think he's great. I think he's great. He's funny. He's smart. He's willing to look inward. He's somewhat emotional. He's caring. And I love all of those things. He obviously has a nerdy vibe, which is so my thing. And I loved him in this book. And the film adaptation, I think, made me love this character even more. I think Ryan Gosling did a great job with him. Definitely have a little fictional crush on Dr. Ryland Grace. And second, no surprise, I'm pulling up Dungeon Crawler Carl again because Carl, the man that you are. I have such a fictional crush on Carl. I think he's a great character. I love the development that he's had throughout this series so far. I also love the bits of his past and his history that we have explored. I love how it's informing his character and the decisions that he's making. And I enjoy Carl so much. I have such a crush on Carl. I think he's a great character. Our next prompt is new favorite character, and I very easily could have picked both or either of the characters I just talked about for our last prompt, but I did want to switch it up at least a little bit. And so I'm going to be holding up Dungeon Crawler Carl one more time, but this time we're going to be talking about Princess Donut, who is one of the main characters in this story. She is Carl's ex-girlfriend's cat, who becomes his partner, his companion, his friend, his family in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I love her. I think she's hilarious. I think she's incredibly smart. I think she's witty. I think that her love for Carl and her other dungeon family members is very sweet. I feel like Princess Donut is a ride or die loyal bitch, and I love that. And she's just become such a great character, one of my favorite characters, and I cannot wait to see how her story and her characterization is further fleshed out in future books. Our next prompt is books that made me cry, and we've talked about both of these books already, but I have to hold them up because when I thought of this prompt, these were hands down the 2 books that made me cry the absolute most this year. First is The Names by Florence Knapp. I cried multiple times throughout this story. What the mother figure in this story goes through in all of these different timelines just hit my heart and just had me tearing up pretty much instantly. The children and what they go through had me very emotional, and I was like waterworks throughout this entire book, but I'm okay with it because it was so well done and because of where the story ended. I think I already mentioned that I cried while reading Project Hail Mary. I actually have a very distinct memory of driving home from work, listening to the audiobook, and having to pause it to have a full breakdown in my car over the fact that I was very worried about where our 2 main characters were going to end up and how I didn't know if I was going to be okay if things didn't go well for them. Like, if anybody drove past me while that was going on, they probably thought something was very wrong, but it was just me being incredibly emotional, being brought to tears over the friendship that is in this book. On the other side of the spectrum, I have a book that made me happy, and I have to be honest, this one was a little bit hard to pick because a lot of the books that I've read so far this year don't necessarily automatically invoke the idea of happy for me. And I ended up settling on Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. And I have to say that I do think that this choice was influenced by my love of the book, but also my love of the Heated Rivalry series. Actually, my shirt. My shirt that I'm wearing today, it's my newest purchase from Life is Good. I'm obsessed with Life is Good. And I couldn't help but get this when I saw it. I really enjoyed this book. I really loved the way that Rachel Reed characterized these characters. I feel like the show took that and ran with it and just made every aspect of this better. It did make me happy. It makes me happy when I think about it. It puts a smile on my face when I think about it. And again, I do think that's tied to the show as well, but the book is great. Next, we have the most beautiful book that I have read this year. And I feel like my response to this is almost cheating a little bit because this is a graphic novel. So not only does it have a beautiful cover, but it has beautiful illustrations throughout. And that is Clara and the Devil by Olivia Blake, illustrated by Little Chmura. I'm probably saying that so wrong and I apologize. This to me is absolutely stunning. Like, I think the cover is incredibly gorgeous, but I also think that the illustrations throughout this are incredibly gorgeous. The way that she's able to portray such emotion through eyes, I think is absolutely incredible and definitely the most beautiful book that I have purchased and read this year. The last prompt for this mid-year reading recap is books that I want to try and read before the end of the year. And I'm going to do exactly what I did last year, which is just read through the books on my 26 books in 2026 that I have not read yet, which is actually a lot. I have not read very many books from my 26 books in 2026 reading challenge. I don't know that I'm going to finish this challenge this year. I really, really want to, but I don't know that it's going to be possible in the next 6 months. So I still have to read The Last Unicorn, The Ministry of Time, Red Rising, Piranesi, This Is How You Lose the Time War, Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, Foul Lady Fortune, Dune, The Will of the Many, A Fate Inked in Blood, Catabasis, Red City, Through Gates of Garnet and Gold, When the Moon Hatched, Inamorata, Sorcery of Thorns, A River Enchanted, and A Darker Shade of Magic. It's a lot. It's a lot of fantasy. It's a lot of sci-fi. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to actually be able to pull it off, but I definitely want to try to. So expect to see a lot of those books on my future TBRs for the second half of the year. And that is going to be it for my mid-year reading recap for 2026. I feel like even though I've read a lot less this year than I have in years past, I have had a really, really great reading year so far. I have found all-time favorites that I know I'm going to be discussing and recommending for years to come. And I just can't wait to see what the second half of the year has in store for me when it comes to reading. And I hope that you all enjoyed this video. If you've read any of the books that I talked about, please do not hesitate to put some comments down below or to answer some of the prompts that I went through in the comments down below. I love talking with people about books. And as always, everyone, please be safe. Bye-bye.